Hello students, let us continue with the second unit, that is Two Deer by Leo Tolstoy. Two Deer is a story written by Leo Tolstoy, a famous Russian writer, master of realistic fiction, and is widely considered one of the world's greatest novelists. The story Two Deer is about the modern systems of governance, and also it tells us the ways of punishing criminals and dispensing justice in modern states. Students, let us begin with the story. Near the borders of France and Italy, on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, lies a teeny little kingdom called Monaco. Here they are telling us where that Monaco, the toy kingdom, was located. It was located near the borders of France and Italy, and it also called teeny little kingdom. By the mentions of this teeny as well as little, you can realize the kingdom was so small. Many a small country town can boast more inhabitants than this kingdom. Here Tolstoy is telling us many a small country town can have more inhabitants. Inhabitants means citizens, the people who are staying there. They can have more people than of Monaco kingdom. Because there are only about 7,000. There were only about 7,000 inhabitants. All of them told that if all the land in kingdom were divided there would not be an acre for each inhabitant. But in this toy kingdom there is a real kinglet. They told us that if the land is being divided between those people, they may not get more than an acre for each of them. There was also a real kinglet. Kinglet means a weak or a petty king. There was a real kinglet and he has a palace just like other king. That king, Monaco king, too has a palace and courtiers and ministers and a bishop and generals and an army. Everything just like in other kingdoms, this king too has everything, but you can imagine in a smaller manner. ಎಲ್ಲಾನು ಇದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಬಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿರ್ತಿತ್ತು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಪ್ರಮಾಣದೊಳಗೆ ಇರ್ತಿತ್ತು. It is not a large army. You can imagine. Here he has got an army too. It is not a large army, only 60 men in all, but still it is an army. Just like other kingdom, this Monaco kingdom too has an army. ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಮಿ ಇತ್ತು. ಎಷ್ಟಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it contains only 60 men in all. There are also taxes in this kingdom as elsewhere, just like everywhere else. In Monaco kingdom too, they had taxes on. For example, a tax on tobacco and on wine and spirits and a poll tax. They were collecting the taxes on tobacco, wine and spirits and a poll tax. But though the people there drink and smoke as people do in other countries, there are so few of them that the prince would have been hard put to it to found hard put to it to feed his courtiers and officials and to keep himself, if he had not found a new and special source of revenue. Even though the people were drinking, the people were smoking, and the king was collecting taxes on all these things, but he was not getting a sufficient amount of money. So he found another method of collecting tax, new method of special method of collecting tax, which can help the king as well as his courtiers to keep them happily. Here they are explaining which was that method. That special revenue, that special tax comes from a gaming house where people play roulette. The special source of revenue was from the gaming house. Gaming house. There he was getting a special source of revenue where people play roulette. There people were playing roulette, gambling. People play, and whether they win or lose, the keeper always gets a percentage on the turnover. Whether people may win or not, the keeper means the owner of the gaming house, he will always get a percentage on a turnover, and out of his profit means out of the owner's profits, he pays a large sum to the prince. It was the special revenue from where the king was collecting a lot of amount. ಇದೇ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಅವನಿಗಲ್ಲೇ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು. That special source of revenue was from gaming house, from roulette, where people win or lose. Whether people may win or lose, always the keeper will get his percentage. From his percentage, he was paying a large sum of his percentage to the prince. The reason he pays so much percentage to the king is that it is the only such gambling establishment left in Europe. Here you can understand why the keeper was paying a large sum to the prince, because it is the only gambling establishment left in Europe. If you see in Europe countries, there you will not get any gambling establishments. But here in Monaco, the prince has given permission to the keeper so that he can run gambling establishment. Some of the little German sovereigns used to keep gaming houses of the same kind, but some years ago they were forbidden to do so. Before some time, some of the German sovereigns also has established this type of gaming houses, but before some years they forbade, they stopped this type of gaming houses. The reason for forbidding the gaming house was they were stopped was because these gaming houses did so much harm. These gaming houses did so much harm so that some of German sovereigns has forbidden the gaming houses. A man would come and try his luck. Then he would risk all he had and lose it. Then he would even risk money that did not belong to him and that too. And then, in despair, he would drown or shoot himself. This was the harm done by gambling to the people of Europe. ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಏನದು ಹಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂತಂದ್ರೆ, a man would come and try his luck. Then he would risk all he had and lose. Then he would even risk money that did not belong to him. The money which was taken from the other. ಅದನ್ನು ಇವನು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದ? He may try the luck for next time and lose that too. And then in despair he would drown or shoot himself. He would drown or shoot himself, a kind of suicide. This is the harm done to the people by gambling houses. So, some of the German sovereigns forbidden the game. But here in Monaco, only for the benefit of the prince himself as well as the keeper. So they were running the gambling houses. So the Germans forbade their rules to make money in this way. In this way means making money with their luck by playing roulette. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಒಂದು ಹಣ ಗಳಿಸುವುದನ್ನು ಅವರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು? They forbade that way of earning money. But there was no one to stop the Prince of Monaco, and he remained with a monopoly of the business. There was no one to stop the King of Monaco, so he remained a monopoly of the business. Monopoly, single ruler of the business. You can understand here from that gaming house, whether people may win or lose, obviously this keeper and the King of Monaco were earning a lot, were getting a lot. So now everyone who wants to gamble goes to Monaco. We were being mentioned that in the Europe, it is the only gaming house left which was there in Monaco. So whoever wants to gamble, they goes to Monaco. Whether they win or lose, the prince gains by it. Ultimately, the prince was gaining by the gambling. Here is a proverb mentioned by the narrator. You can't earn stone palaces by honest labor. It is a Russian proverb. It means if you are unfair, then only you can earn a lot of money. If you are unfair, then only you can earn a lot of money. Here, the King of Monaco was unfair to give permission to the gambling houses so that he was earning a lot. He was unfair. That is why he was earning a lot and maintaining himself, managing himself and his life. You can't earn stone palaces by honest labor, as the proverb says, and the kinglet of Monaco knows it is a dirty business. But what is he to do? Even the King of Monaco knows very well of the proverb, as it says, it is unfair to permit for gambling. But what else he has left with? He has no choice. He has no option to earn money. So he gave permission to the gaming houses. He has to leave. The purpose for giving permission to the gaming house was he has to leave and to draw a revenue from drink and from tobacco is also not a nice thing. Whatever he was collecting taxes on tobacco and on wine, it was not that kind of huge amount he was getting. So he leaves and rins and rakes in the money and holds his court with all the ceremony of a real king. Even though it is a tiny kingdom, even though it is a little kingdom, it has got every facilities, every courtier, minister, bishop and generals as a 60 men army too. So he has to hold everything. He rules the country, he reigns, he rules the country and rakes in the money. Rakes in the money means he earns a lot of money and also he holds his court with all the ceremony of a real king. Just like other king, he was also managing with the precious money what he has collected from the taxes. As the title says, too dear, too expensive. Everything was so expensive, the king had left with nothing, no options. So he was doing everything with the taxes. He has his coronation. Coronation means crowning ceremony. He has his coronation, he leaves. It is a reception to give the people. After his crowning ceremony, he gave reception too. He rewards, sentences and pardons, and he also has his reviews, councils, laws and courts of justice just like other kings, only all on a smaller scale. Everything was being done in the toy kingdom too with this kinglet of Monaco, but everything in a smaller scale. Now it happened a few years ago that a murder was committed in this toy prince's kingdom. Now there was a problem. Till this time, he has not explained there was a problem. Even the kinglet has no issues for collecting taxes. Even the king was a monopoly of the business, that is gambling, that is gaming house. Now there was a problem. That problem was a few years ago. A murder was committed in this toy prince's domain. In his area, a murder was committed. The people of that kingdom are peaceable. They were living so peacefully. And such a thing here, a murder, and such a thing had not happened before. Till that time, nobody has committed crime in Toy Kingdom. That had not happened before. The judges assembled with much ceremony and tried the case in the most judicial manner. Here you can see how they are mentioning the judges assembled with much ceremony. It was a kind of ceremonious thing only to have judgment on a murder case. ಇದುವರೆಗೂ ಮರ್ಡರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆದಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. It happened now. ಈಗ ನಡೆದಿದ್ದಲ್ಲೇ those judges assembled, gathered with much ceremony. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ceremonious ಆಗಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ gather ಆದ್ರು and tried the case in the most judicial manner. There were judges, the prosecutors and jurymen and barristers. They argued and judged, and at last they condemned the criminal to have his head cut off as the law directs. Every kingdom, every country has its own law, has its own law. According to the law of Monaco kingdom, these judges declared their judgment. They declared their judgment that the criminal to have his head cut off. Criminal ತಲೆಯನ್ನು ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು. ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ? As the law directs, as the law of the Monaco directs, it is the only judgment we can have. ಇದೇ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದು they declared their verdict. Next, they submitted the sentence to the prince. The sentence here means judgment. They submitted the sentence to the prince. The prince read the sentence and confirmed it. He read the sentence and confirmed it that we should have the criminal's head cut off. If the fellow must be executed, execute him. The prince declared, he confirmed, if the fellow, if the criminal must be executed, execute him. To execute means to have his head cut off. ತಲೆ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಾಗುವುದೇ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿದ್ರೆ let us do that. ಅದನ್ನೇ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಅಂತಂದು he confirmed the sentence. There was only one hitch in the matter. Now the matter was, ಏನಿತ್ತೀಗಲ್ matter ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the judgment was declared. Now they have to cut the criminal's head off. There was only hitch, that is problem, a small problem in the matter. ಯಾವ್ದ್ರೊಳಗೆ small problem ಆಗ್ತಿತ್ತು? To cut the criminal's head off. The matter, and that was that they had neither guillotine for cutting heads off nor an executioner. It was the problem there. ಏನದು problem ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ they had neither a guillotine for cutting heads off nor an executioner. In the kingdom of Monaco, there was no device for beheading a person by means of a heavy blade nor an executioner. Guillotine means a device for beheading a person. ತಲೆಯನ್ನು ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿ ಹಾಕಲಿಕ್ಕೆ in before previously that kind of devices were being used in the France ಒಳಗೆ ನಾವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ. ಗಿಲೆಟಿನ್ ಮಷಿನ್ ಅದೇನಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ವಿತ್ ಅ ಶಾರ್ಪ್ ಬ್ಲೇಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಕಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ಸ್ ಹೆಡ್ ಆಫ್. ತಲೆಯನ್ನ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿ ಹಾಕ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಂಥದ್ದು. ಆ ಗಿಲೆಟಿನ್ ಕೂಡ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾರ್ ಆನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಷನರ್, a person who is expert to cut the head off. ತಲೆಯನ್ನ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿ ಹಾಕುವಂತ ಒಬ್ಬ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿನೂ ಕೂಡ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಕಿಂಗ್ಡಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. The ministers considered the matter and decided to address an enquiry to the French government, asking whether the French could not lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head. So now ministers and judges gathered again. They decided to address an enquiry. To address an enquiry means to send an enquiry letter to the French government, requesting them whether they are ready to send a machine and an expert to use it. ಫ್ರೆಂಚ್ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದು ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಲೆಟರ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಏನ್ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ whether the France is ready, French are ready to send a machine as well as an expert for them to lend. ಬಾಡಿಗೆಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಡಿ ಇದಾರಾ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. If so, If so means in case the French are ready, ಅವರೇನಾದ್ರೂ ರೆಡಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದೇ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ, would the French kindly inform them what it would cost? What it would cost. Now you all know how the prince was leading himself. ತನ್ನ ಜೀವನ ನಡೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. You can imagine whether Monaco kingdom can bear the amount, the cost for lending a machine and an expert. ಅವರಿಂದ ಟಾಲರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗ್ತಿತ್ತಾ, ಹ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗ್ತಿತ್ತಾ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. They sent a request letter to the French government if they are ready to send an expert and a machine, how much that may cost. ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಗ್ತದ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಅದಕ್ಕಂತ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. The letter was sent. A week later, the reply came. A machine and an expert would be supplied and the cost would be 16,000 francs. The French government replied, if they would like to have lend that machine and an expert, that may cost 16,000 francs. French, ಅವ್ರು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಂತ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ that was mentioned as francs. ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ? If you want machine and an expert, that may cost 16,000 francs. This was laid before the king. This was laid before the king means the reply from the French government. It was kept in front of the king. He thought it over. He thought it over means he gave a thought for the money, for the cost. ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡ್ದ. 16,000 francs, he exclaimed. He was afraid. ಆಶ್ಚರ್ಯ ಆಯ್ತು ಅವನಿಗೆ, ವಂಡರ್ ಆಯ್ತು. 16,000 francs? The wretch is not worth the money. Here the wretch means the criminal. The criminal is not worth the money, said he, said the king. Can't it be done somehow cheaper? Again he is asking to his minister whether is there any another way of dealing with this criminal to have his head cut off. ಅವನ್ ತಲೆ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಾಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇರೆ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಚೀಪರ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಅದನ ಅಂತಂದಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮಾಡ್ದ. Why 16,000 francs is more than? Now he is giving an explanation to his ministers. Why 16,000 is costly? ಇದು ಯಾಕೆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಆಗಿತ್ತು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, because it is more than 2 francs a head on the whole population. Look at that, how that kinglet already has calculated. If you want to pay 16,000 francs to the French government, we need to collect more than 2 francs a head on the whole population. ಒಂದು ತಲೆಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ತಗೋಬೇಕಾಗ್ತಿತ್ತು? ಮೋರ್ ದ್ಯಾನ್ 2 francs ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ we will be able to fulfill the cost. ಆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಅವಾಗ ಆಗ್ತದ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ದ. The people wouldn't stand it. ಅದನ್ನ the people wouldn't stand it ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ that more than 2 francs on a head on the whole population would be burdensome for them and it may cause riot. It may cause a disturbance in the kingdom. Till then they lived peacefully. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿದ್ರು, ಜೀವನ ನಡೆಸ್ತಿದ್ರು. ನಾವೇನಾದ್ರು ಈ ರೀತಿ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ವುಡ್ ಬಿ ಬರ್ಡನ್ಸಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬ್. ಕಿಂಗ್ಡಮ್ ಒಳಗಿದು ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ದ. So the council was called to consider what could be done. Again the council was called and they started rethinking what can be done with this criminal. And it was decided to send a similar inquiry to the king of Italy. Now they decided to send a similar inquiry to the king of Italy. The French government is republican. While sending the request letter to the king of Italy, they thought ಅವ್ರು ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದು ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the French government is republican and it has no proper respect for king as we have a king in Monaco. ಅದು ಫ್ರೆಂಚ್ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ರಿಪಬ್ಲಿಕನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದೇನ್ ಮಾಡಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಕಿಂಗ್. ಕಿಂಗಿಗೆ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಮರ್ಯಾದೆ, ಅವ್ರ ಮರ್ಯಾದೆ ಕೊಡಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು, ಬಟ್ ದ ಕಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಟಲಿ ವಾಸ್ ಅ ಬ್ರದರ್ ಮೊನಾರ್ಕ್. Who is brother monarch here? The king of Italy was a brother monarch and might be induced to do the thing cheaper. Brother monarch, it has the same system that the king is ruling there in Italy too. So they can understand the problem here and they can understand the problem here what the Monaco king is going through, and they can or they may make the thing cheaper. So the letter was written and the prompt reply was received to letter bardra answer sikki avrigalle. The Italian government wrote that they would have pleasure in supplying both a machine and an expert, and the whole cost would be 12,000 francs, including traveling expenses. Now you can see the reply from the Italian kingdom. ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ they were ready to help to the kingdom of Monaco and they were ready to send a machine and an expert, and the whole cost would be 12,000 francs. It was cheaper than the French government's expenses. ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಂತ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸ್ ಗಿಂತನೂ ಇದೇನಾಗಿತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿತ್ತು, ರೆಂಟ್ಗಿಂತ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ವುಡ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ 12,000 francs ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡಿಂಗ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲಿಂಗ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸಸ್. ಟ್ರಾವೆಲಿಂಗ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು 12,000 francs ಗೆ we are ready ಅಂತಂದು ಇಟಾಲಿಯನ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ gave a prompt reply ಬಂತು. This was cheaper, but still it seemed too much for the king of Monaco. You can understand. Again, he may think of collecting taxes on the heads. ಆ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಈಗ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. The rascal was really not worth the money. That time, the wretch, now he is addressing him as the rascal was really not worth the money. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ದುಡ್ಡು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡೋದು ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. It would still means nearly 2 francs more per head on the taxes. Again he said that if you want to pay the rent to the Italian government, we need to collect a tax more per head, 2 francs more per head. ಇವನಿಗೆ decide ಮಾಡೇ ಬಿಟ್ಟ. So another council was called. Even that Italian government's proposal was not fulfilling their needs. Our proposal kuda your needs fulfill ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. Another council was called. They discussed and considered how it could be done with less expense. Again they thought over and over about the matter, and they tried to consider it, and they tried to get a solution for this criminal in a cheaper manner. Could not one of the soldiers perhaps be got to do it in a rough and homely fashion? Someone of the council member asked, could not one of the soldiers perhaps be got to do it in a rough and homely fashion? The punishment for the criminal was to have his head cut off. Here, one of the council member was asking to the council that soldiers are here. 60 men were there in the army. Soldiers are here in our kingdom. Why can't they do the same? Because they know how to kill the enemies in the battlefield. They can cut the criminal's head off. Even thought better, the cheaper manner for them. They thought of asking their soldiers to do the same for them. The general was called and was asked. The general, the army general was called in front of the council, and he was being asked, can't you find us a soldier who would cut the man's head off? That general was asked from the king as well from the council members. Can you get us a soldier who can cut the criminal's head off? ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಒಬ್ಬ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ ಬಂದು ಇವನ್ ತಲೆ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾಕಕ್ ರೆಡಿ ಇದಾನ, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀನ್ ಅಂತವ್ರನ್ನ ಹುಡುಕ್ಬಾರ್ದು, ಅಂತವ್ರನ್ನ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬರಕ್ಕಾಗುತ್ತಾ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಇನ್ ವಾರ್, what the council members thought as well as the king, ಏನ್ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, in war they don't mind killing people. You can see the word. In the battlefield, the soldiers won't mind killing people. They are not people actually, they are the enemies for the soldiers. Battlefield olaga enemies gal fight ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಹೊರತು not the common people there. In fact, that is what they are trained for. The soldiers are trained for killing people in the battlefield. The soldiers are trained for killing people in the battlefield. So the general talked it over with the soldiers to see whether one of them would not undertake the job. As the council requested the general, as the king requested the general, he too tried with his soldiers whether any one of them ready to do the job. But none of the soldiers would do it. But they said no. No one from the soldiers were ready to do the same. Yaru adukale agree agilla. No, they said, we don't know how to do it. They are not executioners, but they are soldiers. That was the difference between executioner, who is being trained to cut the criminal's head off. Soldiers, they are trained for fighting against the enemies in case they can kill them. ಎನಿಮೀಸ್ ಗಳ ಜೊತೆ ಫೈಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಹೊರತು ಅವರಿಗೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮನುಷ್ಯನ ತಲೆ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಾಕ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. It is not a thing we have been taught. It is the reply from the soldiers and from the general to the council and to the king. Let us stop here. Now you can realize They have got so many options, so many trials, but still there is no solution to have the criminals head cut off. The first thing, the judges decided to cut the criminal's head off. Prince agreed with their sentence. ಅವನು ಅಗ್ರಿ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದ್ದಾಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು? The king should know whether they have the machine guillotine or an expert in their kingdom. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಷಿನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ ಅದನ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದು ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ? The prince agreed with the judgment, and for the second time, that to fulfill the same statement, to fulfill the sentence, they tried with the French government and Italian government and with the general. These are the three trials. They tried to stick on with their sentence. ಅವ್ರು ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತ ಜಡ್ಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಫುಲ್ಫಿಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು 3 ಹಾದಿಯೊಳಗೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರಲ್ಲೇ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಬಟ್ ಆಲ್ ದ 3 ways were blocked. ಅವರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಆಗಲಿ fulfill ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. So what will happen? Let us continue that, the left part in the next class. Thank you.